It's Prowl 1701 here, and today let's review Season 8 of classic Doctor Who, Jon Pertwee's second season in the role. Now, Season 8 is an interesting one, because if Season 7 is what we retroactively call a soft reboot for Doctor Who, Season 8 is kind of a softer reboot to that, because Season 8, the tone of the Pertwee era changes for the remainder of its run, its last 4 years. Because Season 7 is very unique. It works really well as a soft reboot for the show, by the way. But Season 7, as I talked about in our video where I did my Let's Review for Season 7, is more serious, more dark. It deals with very adult themes. It feels like Doctor Who grown up for adults. Less for kids with the subject matter it's dealing with. It has a much darker and serious tone. Now, Season 8 is kind of a soft reboot on that, where it gets a little more family friendly. There's still some great adventures in Season 8, but it feels a little more family in mind, which again would get for the remainder of the Pertwee era. Excuse me. An example is, as another YouTuber mentioned, Season 7 unit feels like a military organization, whereas in Season 8 onward it feels more like a family dynamic going on. I forget who said that, but they nail that perfectly. It's very true, and the stories, while they feel like even the plots of the stories are still perfectly suited for children, whereas in some of the stuff going on in Season 7 is much darker. Like a whole planet getting destroyed. So I feel like Season 8 is a bit of a soft reboot, getting it back to that more family-friendly for kids story plot. Now, Season 8 is also kind of the quintessential Pertwee season. Season 8 is the Pertwee season you think of when you think of the Pertwee era. All of the standard things you think about when you think about the Pertwee era is in Season 8. It's kind of the most Pertwee season to ever Pertwee. You have the Master being introduced for the first time by Roger Delgado, and he's fantastic. Roger Delgado is the best Master, hands down. Absolutely love his performance. Great introduction in Terror of the Autons. And he shows up in every story, which some people might think is a little much. I love it. I think he's great in all the stories he's in. Even Colony in Space, which didn't necessarily need him, but he's great in it. And just, I feel like we didn't get enough of Delgado, because as he tragically passed away during the Pertwee era, actually, in a car accident in Turkey, sadly. So I treasure every episode with him we have. So we have all of him. We have all of the episodes in this season are on Earth except for Colony in Space. All of them basically deal with the Unit except for Colony in Space. Unit really gets a lot to do in this one. We're introduced to Jo Grant, and Jo is kind of the Third Doctor companion. I mean, all of the Third Doctor's companions are great. Sarah and Liz are great. But Jo is kind of his companion people think of. She's introduced here. We also have Mike Yates, a big staple of the era, being introduced here. And we have some good stories. Terror of the Autons is a good story. I think Spearhead's a little better, but Terror is great. Mind of Evil is easily my favorite story of the season. It's also written by the same guy who wrote Inferno, and you guys know I love Inferno. And again, if there's any story this season that feels like it could have slotted in Season 7 with the more serious nature of the story, it's Mind of Evil, even though it has a couple naff parts in here, like the little dragon thing the guy sees. But it works really well, and they got to have a real rocket. Oh, you know the Doctor Who team had to love the fact they got to play around with a real rocket in filming. You know they love that. And so I like Mind of Evil. It's my favorite story of the season. It's really good. We have Claws of Axos, which could be my least favorite Pertwee story, but it's still fine. I still enjoy it. There's no bad stories in the Pertwee era, in my opinion. None of them that are just flat out bad. There's a couple that are kind of weaker, like the Claws of Axos and Planet of the Daleks. But they're not what I would classify as bad stories, which is a testament to how good the Pertwee era just is from a writing standpoint and directing standpoint. Claws of Axos is still fun, even if I don't agree with everything that's going on in it, and some of the costume designs are good, some of the costume designs not as good. The guest cast is really good in it. Colony in Space I like a lot. I think it's a very underrated story. It loses me a little bit. I have come to realize and admit that the whole stuff going on with the city loses me a little bit. I can understand why some people think it needed to be a little shorter. Some people argue it might need to be a 4-parter. I used to really disagree with that, but sometimes I'm like, because the stuff with the city doesn't really need to be there, even if it is interesting. And we get a really good scene of dialogue between the Master and the Doctor in the city when the Master offers him to rule the universe with him, which is kind of the only way the Master can really reach out to his own friend. And the Doctor saying, I don't want to rule the universe, I just want to see it. I love that scene. It's a really well-written, well-performed scene. And then, of course, we have, to cough, apparently. Then we have The Daemons, which is regarded as one of Jon Pertwee's best stories. I believe it was John's, actually, favorite story. Or The Demons, whichever you prefer to call it. I prefer to call it The Daemons. And it's usually between The Daemons and Inferno where I hear people saying which one they think is the best Pertwee story. And while I'm not as into The Daemons as some people, I do think it's a good story. I just don't think it's like top tier Pertwee like I do some of the others. I prefer Colony in Space, for example. But there's a lot of things I like about The Daemons. The location work for it is really good. Filming in that town is really, really nice. The guest cast is really good. The reporter is very annoying, but I think that's the point. I love the guy playing the professor who just doesn't take any crap from the reporter. I was very upset when the professor died. Delgado, of course, is back as the Master in it, and he's great. Joe makes me want to strangle her a couple times, and Yates is far more tolerant of her than I am. But it's a good story. It's great location work. It has some naff bits, like it's definitely Stephen Thorne voicing the one demon. And anytime I hear his voice, all I can think of is Omega, because it's the same voice. I had the same problem with Hand of Fear. So it pulls me out of the story a little bit, plus he just doesn't look that physically intimidating. But other than that, it is a good story, and a good season finale as well. A lot of it's just that village. I love that village. It's a really strong season. It is a really, really strong season, like all of the Pertwee era. The 70s in general. The 70s tend to be my favorite season, my favorite decade of Doctor Who. My nose really itches. That's driving me crazy. The 70s definitely is my favorite decade of Doctor Who. And I tend to love the Third Doctor and the Fourth Doctor a lot. So I kind of like that this is kind of the quintessential Pertwee season, even if it's not my favorite Pertwee season, or even his best regarded, just because all of the things you think of with the Pertwee era are very active here, with really only Colony and Space being the only one that's kind of cut from another cloth, so to speak. I like a lot of the set designs, like the prison in Mind of Evil. We get a lot of good location work, which is really nice to see. I love that we see the Master very quickly doing his disguises stuff that I always enjoy seeing him do. Yeah, and then you have such a good lead in Jon Pertwee. John's one of the best Doctors, one of my favorite Doctors, probably my third favorite Doctor. He's really, really good in the role. So to rank the stories for this season, I'd probably have Claws of Axos at the bottom. And then I would say The Daemons. Then I would say Colony in Space, then Terror of the Autons, and Mind of Evil at the top. Is probably how I would rank them if I was doing them. I just don't quite get into the Daemons as much as some people do, while still admitting that it's a great story. I just wish people would do that with Colony in Space more. As for Liz, I do miss that we didn't really get a goodbye for Liz. I liked Carolyn John as Liz Shaw a lot. I like when the Doctor has brainy companions like Liz or Zoe. I would really love to see that again, actually. But I understand why they brought Jo in to kind of give the Doctor someone to give exposition to, so we as the audience can be clued into, somebody to say, but Doctor, what's this? And Jo is a little more on the ditzy side. I mean, she's great. I love me some Jo Grant, but she's a little on the ditzy side, let's be honest. So it gave the Doctor a little someone better to give that kind of exposition to. But I like Jo, but I would have rather had Liz. Liz ranks higher for me on companions than Jo does, just personally. But Jo is a great companion. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. A lot of Earth-based stories. A lot of, again, the Doctor exiled on Earth here. with really only Colony and Space being cut from a different cloth. So, it's also interesting to note, for the record, while I have you here, that Season 8, I was surprised we got it so early in the range, because Season 8, most of the episodes are not their original masters. Of the 25 episodes that make up Season 8, only 3 episodes are the original 625 PAL master tapes, and that is episodes... it's 2 episodes of... I forget which 2 episodes. 2 episodes of The Claws of Axos. I literally forget which 2. It's either 1 and 4 or 2 and 3 are the original masters, and the other 2 are not. And then episode 4 of The Daemons is the original master. All of the others are recovered from other sources, with Mind of Evil definitely needing to be colorized, as only a black and white print of that existed, so they had to use the color recovery for most of the episodes and manual recolorization for the first episode. And so some of the episodes don't look quite as good in quality as some of the episodes in the later Pertwee seasons and after that, but I still think they've done a really good job on it, and they look really good on Blu-ray. They look better than they ever have on home media anyway on Blu-ray. So I want to know what you think of Season 8 and the recolorizations and all that stuff, everything related to Season 8. Comment down below. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There's a link to that down in the description below. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. A link to my Amazon wishlist is down there. A link to my Amazon UK wishlist is also down there as well. I want to give a shout out to one of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney. I appreciate his support as I do the support of all of my patrons. It's very much appreciated. Most importantly, thank you for watching.